Our redrafters, Phyrexia LB1 is just a week or so away now, and it's looking like it's going to be a really, really hot set. Some really powerful commons and uncommons in this set if you haven't already watched my previous video. But the whole idea is we're going to be back on new Phyrexia, which used to be mirrored in. The Phyrexians are winning. We've got Planeswalkers have been completed. We've got the equivalent of Phyrexian Gods. We've got some spicy reprints from the past. We've got some cool callbacks and completions of cycles and loads of stuff going on and loads of flavour, loads of power and loads of interesting mechanics to be talking about. So let's get into it. First of all, as I've mentioned, we've got a load of Planeswalkers, and we don't just have the 5 mythic completed Planeswalkers that you can see here, which should already be quite a few Planeswalkers in a set. We've got another 5 Planeswalkers at rare which aren't completed, so we've got loads of Planeswalkers knocking about this time, and it's more than if you just think it's a normal set with 10 Planeswalkers, because normally if you're looking in the way the sets are put together, you get rares showing up at twice the rate of mythics, so it's a bit like having 15 mythic level Planeswalkers. So normally, if you got between 3 and 5 Planeswalkers at mythic in a set, you'd see one in about every 28 to 47 packs, which comes out at, between one every draft, one every 2 drafts kind of level, because you'll have 24 packs in a draft, 48 packs in 2 drafts, so you'll be looking at one every 2 drafts if it's a normal 3 Planeswalker set. If it's this set, you're going to be looking at more like 1 in 9.3 packs, which is going to average out pretty much 3 Planeswalkers per draft. So we're going to be seeing a lot more Planeswalkers. And yes, these Planeswalkers are rare, but they aren't weak by any stretch of the imagination. So although it's not going to be, you're not going to have a Planeswalker in every pack like you did in War of the Spark, and you're not going to be playing opponents which will always have a Planeswalker. You're not going to always have Planeswalker in your own deck. You will be seeing quite a few of them around the draft table, and there'll be something that you want to be looking at for a lot more. Planeswalker removal is going to be a lot more important in things that interact with that, and boy, do we have a lot of things which interact with Planeswalkers, specifically loyalty counters, but we'll come back to that in a moment. First of all, we're going to be talking about a different type of counter. I've got 3 main counters we're going to be looking at in this set, and there's going to be a bit of a counter theme. Interestingly, none of them are +1/+1 counters or -1/-1 counters. And kind of taking the place of those, we've got oil counters. So oil counters just go on permanents, and they do different things depending on which permanent you're talking about. And it's going to be the main counter of the set. So you can see here, you've got a section of cards which either care about putting counters on things, which put counters on themselves, or work with the counters that are going on them. They can either be put on by themselves, or can be put on by another source, and it's just the way that we're using this resource in this set. The third type of counter we're going to be talking about is poison counters. Long-time players of the game will know all about poison counters because they are quite scary. Probably know it from the infect decks that you often see, things like modern and things like that. This isn't infect, so what toxic does is if this creature with toxic deals combat damage to a player, it will add a number of poison counters to that player, and if a player ends up with 10 poison counters on them, they lose the game. So it's a bit like another life source, and you can't really gain the life back, you can't really take the poison counters off. You can see here both the examples I've got have toxic 1. You can get different numbers on there. If you have a toxic 5, then it'll give 5 poison counters when it deals damage. So that'll obviously be really scary because that's like hitting you for 10 if it hits you in the face. And there's interesting stuff going on with this. It's not always going to be linked up with the creature's power. In fact, it often won't be linked up with the creature's power. So Vile Spawning creates a 3/3 with toxic 1. So if it hits you, you will lose 3 life and you will get 1 poison counter. And that's just kind of like the way it works. It does stack, so if you have a creature with toxic 1, and then you give it toxic 1 again, it hits you, it will give you 2 poison counters, so that's something to bear in mind. And then, with all of these counters running around, we have Proliferate. So Proliferate, when it happens, it could be if a creature deals damage, it could be if you cast the spell, you'll get this Proliferate, and what that means is for every counter on a person or permanent on the battlefield, yours or your opponent's, you can put an additional counter of that type on. So if you got your Planeswalker, you can put an additional Planeswalker, an additional counter on your Planeswalker. You can put an additional poison counter on your opponent. You can put an additional poison counter on yourself if you really want. And that's just kind of how it works. So it's really, really powerful, especially if you've got a lot of counters going on. Your deck's really built up around these counters. Anything which says Proliferate is going to give you a lot more value. Now, you might think that poison counters, all they care about is getting you to 10 poison counters and killing you, but that's not quite the case. And there's a cool thing they've done here where it's not all or nothing with poison counters. It's not get them as dead as soon as possible. It is using the poison counters and getting the advantage from that. So we'll have this mechanic called Corrupted. And what this means is if the player, if your opponent has 3 or more poison counters on them, then the spell does something different. So you can see here, a Knight with Affliction, exile a target creature if its mana value is 3 or less. For 1 and a black, instant's already really good. But if you've got Corrupted, it doesn't matter about that mana value. It just exiles any creature. So that is like a really, really powerful spell if you have Corrupted, and if it doesn't have Corrupted, well, it's just quite powerful instead. But 1 black to exile anything is amazing. So if you manage to get them to this Corrupted point, which I don't think will be too difficult, it's going to be a really, really powerful spell. And there will be some decks which don't care about getting the opponent to 10 poison counters. They'll care about getting the 3 and then just kill them with damage in some way, whether it be quickly or whether it be slowly. So this is a way to think about it. If you're defending, you probably don't want to get that 3rd poison counter. It's going to be probably, apart from the 10th, the most important one. If you can keep yourself to 1 or 2, you'll be in a really good position, because although this is kind of centered mainly in black or white, there's things that care about Corrupted in pretty much all colors, I think. We've also got a token creature that you're going to see a lot of, and this is the Phyrexian Might. So loads of things make this. It's got Toxic 1, it's a 1/1, and it can't block. And also, which is going to be a little bit key, is an artifact creature. So don't forget that, because there are a few artifact synergies within this set. So different things make these mites. They are going to be quite key for getting your opponent dead with poison, because you can kind of go wide with these mites. I think green-white is, unsurprisingly, a go-wide strategy. And it's going to be a way, either you can like get those 1/1s in to start with, and you can get the poison counters to get the Corrupted, or you're going to finish them off with, you've got 5 1/1s. They're down to like 8 poison counters. They've got 8 poison counters on them. They need 2 more, and you can just get in around whatever else is going on. Or it might be that if they're blocking some ways, they're dead to poison, blocking other ways, they're dead to damage. It's going to depend on kind of what the board states are going to be. It's looking like a really complex set. I think there's going to be a lot going on, and it's going to be really interesting, because we've got some really, really good uncommons, and we've got a lot of them are really, really good removal spells. So we've got some good threats, we've got some amazing removal spells. Ossification here, exile target exile target creature or planeswalker and opponent controls until it leaves a battlefield. So this is an Oblivion Ring type effect. Yes, you've got to put it on a basic land. You're going to have basic lands in the format. And it's just really, really powerful. You don't see this for 2 mana very much. Sometimes it's got a mana value restriction or something like that. We've got Tyvar's Stand here. We've seen the green. Something gets hexproof and indestructible until the end of turn already. But this is a pump spell on top of that. At instant speed, it's just amazing. And then things like Shieldred's Edict as well. Ooh, got my words out eventually. Sorry, I'm full of cold at the minute. But Shieldred's Edict. We've seen edicts before, which are fine. Not great in most formats, but they're fine. This one just gets around a lot of the problems. If they've got a load of tokens in one creature that you want to get rid of, it's going to get rid of that creature. It can get rid of planeswalkers as well, if you want. And like I say, planeswalker is going to be a big part of this in a way that we haven't seen for a while. And yeah, it's just some really, really, really good power at uncommon, and a lot of removal, so it feels like it might be a grindy format. We'll have to wait and see. We've said that before in the recent past, Brothers War, Power Stones, big Voltron creatures, but it's looking like it's going to be a really fun format. Anyway, at this point, a big thank you to everybody who likes the videos and subscribes to the channel and just keeps the channel going. We've grown so much over the last year. This time last year I had about 200 subscribers. I'm now pushing 1,200. It would be great if this video got me to 1,500. That's an ambitious target, I will say, but it would be fantastic if we could get there. And I just put these arena codes up as a thank you. I know they go quick. I can't really control that, but those who get them, comment down below when you do use them so people know whether they're gone or not. If you use them and they're gone and somebody else hasn't commented, you stick a comment down there as well. And, comment saying what you think of the video. Comment saying the type of content you want to see. I am going to be doing my not my spoiler video, this is kind of a spoiler video, my draft achievement list / bucket list video that I know people like. Doesn't get a huge amount of views, but I like doing it. I know some people like that one as well. That'll be coming up, and some other bits and pieces I'll hopefully be streaming for the All Will Be One streamer event next week as well. So loads and loads of stuff coming up. One other video which went down well with Dominaria Remastered was when I did my first couple of drafts over a weekend. I posted a video of my review. I'm thinking about doing that with pre-release this time as well. So after my first pre-release or two, I'll post my decks and just kind of talk through how they went. So make sure you're subscribing for all that good content. Okay, on to the draft archetypes, and we've got 10 archetypes that we normally see, all of 2 colour pairs. We've got this first one here, blue-white, and the signpost uncommon is Cephalopod Sentinel. So its power is equal to the number of artifacts you control. It's a star 5 or an X, well, it's star 5, it's not an X5, it's a star 5 for 4 flyer. It's going to be quite good, and like I said before, those mites are artifacts, and I think that's going to be something which people miss to start with. If you can make a good few mites in your deck, you don't need to attack with them. If you've got one of these, it can just get in, and if you've got things which care about artifacts entering the battlefield, then that's going to be pretty good as well. An X Sentry is just an example of a really powerful artifact that we've got. 2 and a white. It's a 1/4, toxic 1, so it can get in there and get some poison counters on your opponent. And when it enters the battlefield, exile target artifact or creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or less until an Eccentric leaves the battlefield. So it is a pretty good way to... It's a great removal spell type thing. I think the mites are... They're probably going to be worth removing with this from time to time, because when you remove the Annex Sentry, the might won't come back because the token. But we've seen this effect on usually a 2/2 before, and a 1/4 just makes it a lot more difficult to deal with. It is an artifact, so if it's artifact removal, then you'll be able to deal with it that way. But to be honest, I don't remember seeing a huge amount of specific artifact removal. We've also got the Transplant Theorist, 3 and a blue for a 2/4 when it enters when it or another artifact enters a battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. And then 2, put target card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. So both these cards are indicating, well, all 3 of these cards are really indicating you might be trying to go for a slower burn. The fact that you can put things back on the bottom of the graveyard, on the bottom of your library. I mean, we have seen this effect hasn't been particularly good, but we obviously have things which care about artifacts here. You can draw discard, and then you just took a load of things back from your graveyard on the bottom of your library and then draw into them. So it'd be really cool if this is a playable card. Not expecting a lot, but it's a cool design, and yeah, we'll wait and see how it turns out. Blue-green cares all about proliferating, and whether this be the poison counters on your opponent, whether it be the oil counters, or if you're really lucky, the loyalty counters on your planeswalker, it cares about using that proliferate mechanic to really get some advantage in. So, Signpost Uncommon, Tainted Observer, 1 green-blue for a 2/3 flyer, toxic 1, so it's already getting that going, and then whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2. If you do, proliferate. So this Phyrexian bird, apparently, I mean, that art is not screaming bird to me, but if that is a bird, that's kind of scary, to be honest. It's a really good way to get some damage in. It's a 2/3 flyer for 3, already fine. Toxic 1, pretty good as well. You can get that corrupted going, you can get that proliferate stuff going, and then if you do get things coming in the battlefield, you get your little, turn 5, you get a 3 drop in, you spend the extra 2, you proliferate, and that could be a huge power boost. Another thing you care about, proliferate, Canker Bloom here, 1 and a green for a 3/2, solid. 1, sacrifice Canker Bloom, choose 1, so you get options, destroy an artifact, destroy an enchantment, or proliferate. This is a fantastic card. I mean, you can block with it. It doesn't say that you can do it with sorcery speed, so you can block with it, sacrifice it, do a thing. This is going to do a huge amount. We've also got Tamio as a mobilizer. It's a 4-drop, enters the battlefield, 4 oil counters on it. Tap, remove an oil counter. Tap, target artifact or creature. It's a little bit like a Icy Manipulator. It doesn't hit lands, fair enough, but it's a little bit like an Icy Manipulator. You don't need to pay 1 for it each time, which is kind of cool. And it looks like it's only got 4 uses, but if you're going to get that proliferate going, then it's got more than 4 uses. And to be honest, after 4 turns, hopefully, whatever it's going to be tapping down is going to, you're going to win the game after that point. Have to wait and see, but I think it does look like quite a powerful card, which some people will misevaluate at first and will probably not play it, because I've seen people do that with Icy, even though it's one of the best limited cards I've ever printed. Black-green is apparently all about toxic and graveyard strategy. So the traditional black-green graveyard deck, but also caring about this toxic, which, if you think toxic, you'd probably think black-green, or at least the Sultai colours, I think, for how it's going to work. So you've got Necrogen Rot Priest, 2 black-green for toxic 2 on a 1/5. When a creature you control with toxic deals common damage to a player, that player gets an additional poison counter. So, it's just adding 1 that toxic value, and 1 black-green, target creature you control with toxic gains death touch until end of turn. So it's going to be really good at getting those toxic creatures in and hitting your opponent. They won't be able to block, they get death touch, so they won't want to block it, they'll have to block it. If you have something like this, it's a 1/5 that has death, so it's a 1/5 death touch potentially. You can do that instant speed, so you can attack in. You got a threat of activation. If this hits the opponent, they're getting 3 counters, so it puts corrupted on already, and that's looking pretty good to me. Some of the things that are going on: Nimri is a paladin, 4 and a black for a 4/4, toxic 2, enters a battlefield, return target creature with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to your hand. I don't know why I love this card so much, but it just screams value to us. There's more powerful uncommons in the set, that's fine, but I just think it's really good. And any other set, this would be seen to be one of the better uncommons, but this is probably just mid-pack, to be honest. But I love it nonetheless. 5 on a 4/4 is always a solid body, and it's got a lot more going on for it here. Also got Unnatural Restoration, 1 and a green sorcery to return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, so get anything you want. And it has Proliferate, so you can once the opponent has some counters on them, you'll be able to proliferate and get a few more counters on. This can kill your opponent by itself. Don't forget that. Anything with proliferate can kill your opponent by itself. Obviously, they've got to have 9 counters on them, but it can put that 10th counter on. Black-white is apparently the main colours which care about corruption. So we've got this Vivisection Evangelist, 5 mana for a 4/4 Vigilance. Okay, not a bad body. Probably not what you want on your golden common, but if you got corrupted, if your opponent is corrupted, so they've got 3 or more counters on them, and there's a battlefield, if an opponent has more than 3 poison counters, destroy target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. So if your opponent has the 3 counters, it just destroys a creature or planeswalker. It's amazing. And if you're turn 5 in a black-white deck and your opponent isn't corrupted, you're probably in not a very good place anyway, from what I can see, you know. And you can hold this for a couple of turns, but it's a real body. It can swing in, it can block in the same way, and it's going to take out probably their best thing. You know, it takes out Planeswalker, which is going to be really useful in a lot of cases here, and I think it's really powerful. We've already seen a Knight with Affliction, really, really solid removal spell, and I've also got this Indoctrination Assistant, 3 in a white. Enters a battlefield, you may return another permanent you control to your hand. If you do, create a 1/1 colourless Phyrexian Might token with Toxic, which we've seen. Imagine this with Vivisection Evangelist. Vivisection Evangelist, next turn, play this, bounce the Vivisection Evangelist back to your hand, and you can play the Evangelist again and remove something. Yeah, okay, that is something that I really, really want to do. Good little combo and one to watch out for with these 2 cards here. Blue-black is Proliferate Control, so we've got Voidwing Hybrid, blue-black for a 2/1 fire. Solid already. Toxic 1. Not surprise, we've got Toxic on a blue-black flyer here. I'm not shocked at that at all. And then when you proliferate, return Voidwing Hybrid from your graveyard to your hand. So whenever you proliferate, this just comes straight back to your hand. Late in the game, you've got a couple of these in your graveyard, you proliferate, you get them both back, you can cast them both again. It's unbelievably powerful card here. You know, you can play them, they can block, you can proliferate again, they can block. Like, there's going to be stuff going on here, and you're going to get some really, really good value from this. Some of the control stuff that we've got here, so you've got Bring the Ending, 1 to blue, counter target spell unless control plays 2. Pretty good. And then, if the opponent's corrupted, you just counter target spell. Like, it's a 1 to blue counter spell, which is great. Like, there's no way to say anything about it. If you want to counter spell, I think this is going to be a really, really good one to do it. Whether you want to counter spell in the format or not, we'll have to wait and see. But, you know, a lot of time, the counter target spell, unless the control plays 2, is going to be absolutely solid. We've seen that before. And if, you know, you're playing this Toxic deck, or even if you're not, it's, you know, you can get the 3 counters on them quite easily, and it's going to be really, really powerful. We've also got Blightbelly Rat, 1 in a black for a 2/2, Toxic 1. And when it dies, proliferate. So you got a way to proliferate here. You got the Toxic. You can get in there. It's just good proliferate, good control, and some really. I mean, that rat is a common as well. Yes, okay, 2 mana 2/2 with set mechanic, but it's got 2 set mechanics on it. It's Toxic 1, and when it dies, proliferate. Like, yeah, it's amazing. You know, your opponent won't want to block this to kill it if it's attacking in, because you can get your Voidwing Hybrid back. Like, yeah. That's a combo to me. Red-black cares about sacrificing creatures and oil counters. So we've got Charforger here, 1 black-red for a 2/3. Enters a battlefield, create a 1/1 red Phyrexian Goblin creature token. And whenever another creature or artifact you control dies, put in the graveyard from the battlefield, put an oil counter on Charforger. And then you can pay 3 counters and exile the top card from your library, and you may play that until end of turn. And yeah, it's fine. I think this is, out of the ones I've seen so far, the one I'm least excited about. It's a fine body though, and it does some stuff. We've got a few other ways to sacrifice. So we've got this 4 mana 6/6. And in this battlefield, you've got to sacrifice a creature. That would be kind of cool already. You know, a 4 mana 6/6. It's going to beat face sometimes. But if the opponent's corrupted, then it just is a 4 mana 6/6. Yes, okay, black. It's going to make it a little bit more difficult to cast, but yeah, that's a solid beater. We'll have to see how things work out. I've seen some Death Touch running around. I've already said the removal's quite good, but if this even gets in once and hits the opponent in the face, or removes their own 4 mana 4/4 or something like that, you're going to be feeling really good about it. Also got his red creature, I can't remember what it's called. 3 mana for a 3/2. Whenever another creature or artifact you control dies, put an oil counter on it, and then you can remove 2 counters from it. Target creature can't block this turn. So, going to be quite a good aggro card for getting those last few things in. If you've got your Ravenous Necrotitan, you know, then you can make something not be able to block, and then this gets in for 6, and it's going to beat face, and that's probably kind of the way that this deck wants to go. I'm not convinced. I mean, black has some really good stuff. Red's got some decent stuff. Black-red could well just be a good value deck, but I'm not super convinced on the synergies. If you can get some Might tokens, it's going to be quite good to sacrifice things. There's ways to sacrifice some Goblin tokens as well, but we'll have to wait and see on this one. Blue-red is looking at non-creature spells and oil counters, and I think red seems to be really about the oil counters here. Blue-red, obviously non-creature spells, we've seen before. We've got Serum Core Chimera, 2 blue-red for a 2/4 flyer. Okay. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put an oil counter on it, and then remove 3 oil counters from it. Draw a card, then you may discard a card. If you discard a non-land card this way, you can have this deal 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. So that is probably, you know, it's probably an alright thing. Getting 3 oil counters on it is going to be difficult, but that effect's going to be quite good. You can discard a rubbish 1-drop or something that you're not going to cast and deal 3 damage to something, remove that really good thing. 2 for body, compared to some of the others, it just doesn't feel good. This is a 4 mana, 2 power flyer. We've seen a 2 mana, 2 power flyer. Okay, it's got 3 more toughness, but that's the way I'm kind of looking at it at the moment. It might be really good, but I'm not really feeling it a huge amount. Looking at some of the cards in this archetype, we've got Sawblade Scamp, red for a 1/1 with haste. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put an oil counter on it, then you can tap, remove an oil counter, deal 1 damage to each opponent. It's a pinger, it pings the opponent's face, it's fine. And then Trawler Drake, 2 and a blue for a 0/0, enters a battlefield with an oil counter on it. So it's a flyer, and it gets +1/+1 for each oil counter on it. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put an oil counter on Trawler Drake. So, I don't know. I think 2 mana for a 1/1 flyer, 3 mana for a 1/1 flyer, sorry, is really, really below rate. If you get another counter on it from casting a non-creature spell, it's fine. And then you really want it to be 3/3 before you really think you've gotten away with something here. So you need to cast 2 non-creature spells. Some of the non-creature spells are good. There's some really good ones out there. Like I say, the removal is really good. I just think I would I want some more better threats in these. I've only just picked out 2 cards which seem to care about set mechanic in here. I haven't looked at the cards' colours in particular at all, but I feel this was one of those weaker mechanics, and some of the others are a lot more strong. Red-white, Boros is the equipment matters aggro deck of the format. So we've got Bladehold Warwhip here, 1 red-white for an equipment with 4 Mirrodin, which is a mechanic I really should have talked about at the start of the video, but I absolutely forgot until this point, and I really should have remembered because I did write the article for it for Draft Sim on kind of talking about the mechanics, so I probably should have remembered this one. Never mind, I'm talking about it now. So what it means is, when these equipments come into the battlefield, you get a 2/2 red rebel creature token, and it attaches to it straight away. So if you've played with Living Weapon, where you get a 0/0 germ, that came from the Phyrexian sets, and this is a Mirren kind of view on it, and the other side of the fight. Obviously, the 2/2 is better than a 0/0. We usually have some high equip costs of this, so you can see this one has equip creature has double strike and equip for 3 red-white, but you know, it's a 2/2 double striker for 3 to start with, which is solid. It's absolutely fine at that rate, and then this sticks around if it's removed. It's something pretty good. It also has this equipment spells cost 1 less to activate, which, equipment cost 1 less to activate, which is going to be really good with these quite high equipment costs. Other equipment matters things in the colour pair. We've got Resistance Reunited, so 1 and white. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn, and equipped creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. So really good against a board wipe if you're going to see some of them, but it's a pretty good pump spell. I haven't seen many combat tricks in the format, so this is going to be one of the ones to watch out for. Also got Rebel Salvo, which is a really powerful removal spell. 2 and a red, instant, deal 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. That permanent loses indestructible until end of turn. It would already be a really good spell, but it's also got affinity for equipment. So if you've got any equipment on the battlefield, it's going to cost 1 less for each of those equipments, and that is a fantastic removal spell in any set, never mind one with a few equipments looking around. The second and last archetype we've got to talk about is Gruul, green-red. I don't actually have the name for this creature yet because we haven't had it spoiled in English yet. I am recording this with 2 cards left to be spoiled, I admit, but I did only have a certain amount of time to do this recording. And it's 6 mana for 5/5 vigilance, costs 1 less for each other permanent you control with an oil counter on it, and when it enters the battlefield, deals 1 damage to each creature your opponent controls. So it's a pretty good body. The thing I really like about this is it takes care of those mites really well. So if the opponent's got a load of might, it's going to wipe them all out, and I think that's a pretty powerful ability in this set because of that. Other than that, it's probably quite good. If you can get this down on turn 4, you're really laughing. 5/5 vigilance, turn 4, and it's hopefully going to remove at least one of their creatures. I think it's going to be quite easy to get oil counters on things in red, especially because I've already said that seems to be the colour which cares about oil counters. So we'll have to wait and see in this one. I think, you know, it's probably mid-table for me at the moment, but it could well be better than that. I'm willing to see it be pretty powerful. Some of the things that we've got in the colour pair is we've got Magmatic Sprinter here, so 2 in a red for a 3/2 with haste. When it enters the battlefield, put 2 oil counters on target creature or artifact creature you control. At the beginning of your end step, return it to its owner's hand unless you remove 2 oil counters from it. And I think that's a really interesting design. So you can just kind of dash it in. So you know, you can play it, put the counters on something else that you want the counters on, swing in for 3. Hit the opponent for 3 if the defenses are down, bring it back to your hand, and you've got oil counters on something else which you might care about. Normally, you'll probably just put them on this and then take them off. That's fine. 3 mana, 3/2 haste is absolutely fine, but sometimes those oil counters will go better elsewhere, and the flexibility of that is really, really cool. In green, we've got Armored Scapegourger, or Scrap Gorger here, so 1 in a green for a 0/3. It gets +3/+0 as long as it has 3 or more oil counters on it. So, you know, you can put your Magmatic Sprint and put the oil counters on this. That'd be quite good. Tap, add 1 mana of any colour. It's one of the few ways of fixing the format, so that's going to be quite interesting. And when it becomes tapped, so that's either for attacking or for putting mana on it, using it for mana, exile target card from a graveyard, put an oil counter on Armored Scrap Gorger. Not a huge... Well, there's quite a bit of graveyard stuff. It's not really a massively graveyard focused set, but black does use the graveyard quite a bit, so that exiling things from graveyard is going to be quite useful. And you know, I think this is going to be quite good. It's going to allow you to fix a little bit, allow you to splash for the extra colour every now and again. I think that's going to be useful. It's going to ramp, so you know, if this is a stompy deck, then you're going to want to get your 4 drops and 5 drops out a bit faster, so that'll be quite good with them. And I think it will be a pretty good role player, specifically in this Gruul deck. And last but probably not least is green-white, which is go wide toxic. So this is probably going to be where you want to use your mites a lot more. First of all, we've got Slaughter Singer, green and white for a 2/2, fine. Toxic 2, great. Whenever another creature you control with toxic attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So obviously this is kind of about attacking with your toxic creatures, which is probably what you want to do with them. And it gives them +1/+1. So if they're not killing with toxic, they're probably killing with their own power and toughness anyway. So that is I can see it going quite well in this. It's not making them like really, really good blockers, and it's not saying that everything with toxic gets +1/+1, and you can't attack into your opponent because of that, because I've got one of these out. But it does mean that it can attack in really well. And if you've got 2 of these, they will pump each other, and they'll pump everything +2/+2. So that's going to be pretty good. We've got Porcelain Zealot for 3 and a white for a 2/3. Beginning combat on your turn, target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn. If that creature has toxic, instead it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So at its worst, it attacks as a 3/4, which is fine for this. But you know, you can turn your mites into 3/3 attackers, and that's going to be really, really powerful. Only does 1 target creature, but you know, get one of these out on a Slaughter Singer, and you have a mite. That mite's going to be swinging in for 4. The rest are going to be swinging in for 2, and they've all got toxic 1. So that's going to be pretty powerful, probably, to be honest. And then we've got Plague Nurse, 3 and a green for a 3/4, toxic 2. 2 and a green. Each other creature you control with toxic gains toxic 1 until end of turn. So it's like it gets an extra layer of toxic, and activate only once each turn, which makes sense. You don't want to just be able to pump this and everything gets toxic a billion. But yeah, I think this is it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's each other creature you control with toxic gets toxic 1, so it doesn't make itself toxic 3 or toxic 2 plus toxic 1. But it's a good way to get in a bit more, and it's got threat of activation as well. You know, people are going to be wanting to block some stuff here. If you've got some death touches, which I don't think are in green and white, but you might have them in black, and you might be doing some slashing, then this would be pretty cool as well. As for fixing, we've already seen Armored Scrap Gorger, which there's the 2-drop which taps on 1 mana of any colour. We've got Mere Convert, which is a 2 mana for a 2/1 with toxic 1, which is quite good. And then it's got tap, pay 2 life, which is going to hurt, but it's still there. Add a mana of any colour. So if you really want to ramp, then this is going to be a way to do it. You don't want to use it too many times because it's, you know, the cool thing is it makes Phyrexian mana. But I really like the design on this. I think it's going to... I don't know how to evaluate it, and I like that. I like to see how it's going to be. It's probably going to be absolutely fine. You use it once, you block with it, you kill one of their attackers, or you get in and you get 1 toxic damage on your opponent. You're going to be happy enough with this, and it's going to have done its job. You don't have to pay the life. I mean, you got to pay life if you want to get the mana, but you don't have to use the mana. You don't have to like tap it every turn. So I think it's going to be absolutely playable. It's colourless, so it goes in any deck. You know, if you get your a pack 3 splashy rare in a different colour, then you can pick one of these up to help you splash it, and that's going to do some rule filling as well. Copperline Gorge, so this is just saying that we've got the enemy coloured fast lands at the rare slot. They're going to be fine. I know it's always useful to know about these. Sometimes you get lucky and you pick a off, you get one of these mid-pack and a pack, and then you can pick a nice bomb up later on and be able to splash for it a bit easier. And then last but not least, we've got Phyrexia and Atlas, which is a Monolith in the set, but if your opponent is corrupted, you can tap it and deal 1 damage to each opponent, or target opponent, I can't remember which. But that's going to be, it's going to be fine. Monoliths are usually not great, but this does feel like it might be a slower, grindier format, so maybe Monolith is going to be a bit better. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Although not quite fixing, we do have a common land cycle in these spheres. So there's 5 spheres at common. There's another 4 at rare, which are colourless, so they act very differently. But these all have the same idea. They come in tapped, they tap for 1 of a colour, and then they've got 1 that colour. So you've got the Phyrexia, which is 1 in white, tap, sacrifice it, and draw a card. These are going to be probably fine. I don't like the come in tapped, but they kind of have to come in tapped. I understand that. Don't want to be them strictly better than basic lands, because every deck is probably going to play a load of these in constructed if they don't. But I think these are absolutely solid. Late game, you'll be able to draw a card off them when you don't need them anymore as lands, and I think that's going to be great. We've got some counter spells. So we've got Bring the Ending, which I've already seen, the one which just turns into a straight up counter spell for 1 in a blue if the opponent's corrupted, otherwise they need to pay 2. We've got Minor Misstep, which is one you're probably not going to want to play, but it is a cool design that, it's probably not going to see play in constructed formats, but it might. Single blue, counter target spell with mana value 1 or less. And then we've got Reject Imperfection, 1 blue, so it's cancel, counter target spell. If that mana value is 3 or less, Proliferate. Could this have just been Proliferate on a cancel? Possibly, but it's absolutely fine that that's this as well. It'll probably play sometimes. Again, depends how slow the format is, depends how bomby the format is, and there does seem to be some good stuff going on. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see how things go here. Looking at 1 mana combat tricks, so it's not a combat trick. We've got Minor Misstep, we've got Blackson's Twilight, which is at rare. It's black and X, but if the opponent's only got 1 swamp out and it's kind of freezing on arena, he gives away that they might have this one. Hexgold Slash in red, and Tyvar's Stand in green. And Tyvar's Stand, I didn't really say it earlier, you can cast this for X equals 0 and be happy with it. It saves your creature, so just bear that in mind. But these are the only 1 mana combat tricks, which really makes us think that we're not going to see a very, very aggro format. There's some good stuff going on. We'll be able to build some fast decks, but it doesn't seem to be a huge amount going on, and I think that's going to be interesting, because we've had a few sets recently which are very aggro, have some very aggro stuff going on, and this one does seem to be a bit slower. One thing which I didn't realise until about an hour before I start recording this video is that I knew we're getting these alternate art Praetors. So these are the original concept art for the Praetors way back when we had the last Mirrodin set, the new Phyrexia set. Now, I didn't realise these were going to be in draft boosters. They're going to be in less than 1% of draft boosters, which, and that's going to be any of these. So less than 1% of draft boosters will have a card of this style, and there's 5 of them. So that's going to be less than 0.2% for each one of these. I don't know any numbers apart from that. You're going to see them very, very rarely, but if you pick one of them in pre-release, or you open your pack and you see it, it's playable in your draft deck. So I just thought it was worth pointing it out. Good luck at you as well, because these are probably going to be worth a little bit of money, and they are really, really cool cards to have, and they're really powerful. I think all of them are powerful. Urabrask, a little bit less so, but the rest, it's still a pretty good card that you want, and I'd be happy to pick up any of these in any of my boosters that I open. Finally, one thing left to talk about, and that is the Boogeyman of the format. So the card which I think is going to be the biggest growing test of the format. And there's a lot to choose from. There's a lot of mythics. We've got 5 gods, we've got 10 planeswalkers, we've got even the Praetors that we've just seen. There's a lot of things that could be here. But I think with the removal in the set, they're all manageable. And there's one that I think is less manageable. And it's rare, and it's not one of those cycles that I've seen. I'm really worried about White Sun's Twilight. So this is white X, you gain X life, create X/1/1 mites. Fine, that bit's okay. If X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. So with some of these other things, your opponent might get a nice 2 for 1, they might even get a nice 3 for 1. If they get a Planeswalker, remove something, and do something else, you're gonna have to sacrifice one of your things to remove the Planeswalker after that. They'll be really happy with that. But it's not going to really swing. Well, it might sway the game, but it's not going to swing the game massively. This can win the game outright. Cast for 7 mana. It's going to be turn 8 or turn 9. It's going to be going back and forwards. Your opponent casts this, wipes the board. They've suddenly got 5/1/1s with Toxic 1. Your pretty much empty-handed. You might be able to deal with one of them, you can't deal with all of them, and you could already have some poison counters on you. Even if you don't have any poison counters on you, if this wipes the board and you're empty-handed, you only need to attack twice and you're dead. So this card seems really, really strong, and I think it being rare, and people will be, it's a pretty cool card, you know, you might not get the 7. I think getting the 7 is going to be definitely possible here. If you get this, you can build your deck with a lot more removal in to get you that point. This just wins the game on its own. And there's at least 5 bodies. If you get to put more mana in, you get more bodies, and you just get the opponent dead that much faster. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a really, really powerful card, and the one that I'm probably going to want to see least on the other side of the table. Anyway, that's it. You've got to give us a subscribe just for suffering through with this cool. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you got something useful from it. I hope you have a good time at pre-release and doing your first drafts. I'll be putting some more content up over the next couple of weeks on this set, and you know, for quite a while now. It's looking like a fun one. I love the look of the uncommons. I always like it when there's a lot of good power at the common and uncommon slot. I think that's an interesting way to be with drafts. But anyway, I need to go get a drink for this throat. So thanks very much for watching. I'm going to catch you again soon. Bye.